This is the second video in the activity-based costing series, and in this particular video we're going to be looking at an example used to distinguish between simple costing and activity-based costing, and how activity-based costing is more accurate than using a simple costing method. Here we have automotive products, designs and produces automotive parts. In 2009, the actual variable manufacturing overhead is $308,600. AP's simple costing system allocates variable manufacturing overhead to its three customers, who are United Motors, Holden Motors, and Leland Vehicle, based on machine hours, and prices its contracts based on full costs. One of its customers has regularly complained of being charged non-competitive prices. So AP's controller, Devin Smith, realizes that it is time to examine the consumption of overhead resources more closely. He knows that there are three main departments that consume overhead. We have design, production, and engineering. Interviews with the department personnel and examination of time records yield the following detailed information. So we see the departments, we see that we're given the cost driver for each department or each activity. So we have three different activities, or in this case departments, so we know there's going to be three rates if we're using activity-based costing. We're given our variable manufacturing overhead for each department and then the total, and then the usage of the cost drivers by each customer. So what we need to do is we need to compute the overhead allocated to each customer using the simple costing system that has machine hours as the allocation base. So this is what they're currently doing that's causing this customer to complain. So let's start with this method first, and then we're going to compare the simple costing results with the activity-based costing results. So recall that when we're using simple costing, we're only going to calculate one rate. So we're going to take total estimated overhead and divide that by the total estimated allocation base. So if we look down at our data that we're given, we see that the total manufacturing overhead is $308,600. And now we need to find the total estimated allocation base. Well, the story tells us that under simple costing, or what they're currently doing, is based on machine hours. And this would be our total machine hours, which if you add those up, it equals 4,000 machine hours. So now putting that into our equation, we find that our allocation rate, our overhead allocation rate, or predetermined overhead rate, is $77.15 per machine hour. Now we're going to use that rate to allocate cost to each one of our customers. So remember, to do that, you take the rate that you just calculated and multiply that times what actually happened with the cost driver for each one of these customers. So we see that United used 120 machine hours, so we're going to take our rate of $77.15, multiply that times the 120 hours that they used, and United will get allocated $9,258 of that $308,600. Holden, we take our rate, $77.15, and we'll multiply it times the number of hours that Holden used, which was 2,800. So Holden is going to get allocated $216,020 of our overhead cost. Leland used 1,080 hours, machine hours, and so they're going to get allocated $83,322 of that $308,600. Now when you add these three customers up, you should get that $308,600 because that's the amount that you're allocating to each one. So now that we've finished using the simple simple costing method, we're now going to move to the activity-based cost method. So here's the original problem, and now we want to use the activity-based costing method and compute the variable overhead that's going to be allocated to each customer using department-based overhead rates. And that just means activity-based costing. So again, we have three departments or three activities, so we're going to need to calculate three rates. So let's do the first one together, which is design department or design activity. And we first have to calculate a rate for this department or this activity. And if we look at our original data, we can see that the design activity, its cost driver is CAD design hours. The total overhead for that department or that activity is $39,000. And this is the number of CAD design hours that each client or customer uses in that department. So to calculate the rate, we're going to take that $39,000, divide that by the 390 CAD design hours that design uses. So the 110, the 200, and the 80 all add up to 390. If you add those up, that's the total cost driver for the design department. And when you do that, you find that design is going to be allocated based on a $100 per CAD design hour rate. And now we can allocate design cost. So our rate again is $100 per CAD design hour. We see that United used 110, so we're going to multiply that times our $100 rate. So design is going to get allocated $11,000 of that $39,000 overhead for design. Holden used 200 CAD design hours times our $100 rate, so that's $20,000. Leland used 80 CAD design hours times our $100 rate, gives us $8,000 that will be allocated to Leland. And again, when you add up the three total amounts there that gets allocated to each customer, you should get that $39,000 that we're trying to allocate. So what I'd like for you to do is do production and engineering, calculate the rate, then allocate the cost. So push pause on your player right now, and then come back when you're done, and we can check your answers. Okay, so now you should have calculated the rates for engineering and production, as well as allocated the cost to production and engineering for each one of the customers. So let's see how we did. So for engineering, you should have found your rate to be $80 per engineering hour, production $60 per machine hour. Then when you allocated those through with the rates and the amount that each client used, you should have found that United is going to get allocated $23,800. Holden will get total allocated of $192,800, and Leland will get allocated $92,000 total of our overhead cost of $308,600. So again, these three, once again, should add up to the same amount that we're allocating before under simple costing. Now let's compare the two. So we did simple costing first, then we did activity-based costing based on the different departments or activities. So now let's look at the two together. So on the top here, we're given simple costing, and at the bottom is our activity-based costing. So the question here is compare the simple costing, activity-based costing system. Is there anything you can tell from this information with regards to using simple costing? So let's look at this. So under simple costing, we only allocated United $9,258. Under activity-based costing, which is more accurate, we find that they should have been allocated $23,800. Under simple, we allocated $216,000 to Holden, and we really should have only allocated $192,800. Under Leland simple costing, we allocated $83,322, and we really should have allocated $92,000 to them. So what we can see from this, what's really happening, is under simple costing, Holden is being what we call subsidized by both United and Leland because they're getting allocated more cost than they should be. So Holden is likely the customer that is complaining. And what will happen under simple costing, if that customer decides to leave, we're going to be losing money on both United and Leland. Well, we're still losing money on United and Leland under simple costing because we're probably undercharging them what we should be charging. And therefore, we're going to be losing a lot of money now if Holden leaves because they are subsidizing Leland and United.